Some people enter the world loudly. Others arrive quietly and spend a lifetime learning how to be heard. Anthony Hopkins belonged to the second group. Long before he commanded silence on screen, long before audiences leaned forward to catch every measured word, he was a boy who felt misplaced in his own life, unsure of his talents, unsure of his future, unsure if he had one at all. This is not just the story of a legendary actor. It is the story of patience, of discipline, of how a man learned to turn isolation into power and silence into art. Philip Anthony Hopkins was born on December 31, 1937, in Port Talbot, Wales, a working-class town defined by steel mills, smoke, and routine. His father was a baker, practical and reserved, a man who valued hard work over imagination. His mother was kinder, more nurturing, but life was structured, predictable, and narrow. Young Anthony struggled to fit into it. School was a battlefield. Hopkins had difficulty concentrating, performed poorly in traditional classrooms, and often felt overwhelmed. Teachers labeled him slow. Classmates bullied him. He later recalled feeling detached from the world, as if he were observing life behind glass. He did not understand why learning felt so hard, why noise felt unbearable, why social rules seemed written in a language he did not speak. What he did understand was sound. Music became his refuge. He discovered the piano and practiced obsessively, drawn to its logic, its patterns, its emotional clarity. Music made sense when people did not. It was through music that fate intervened. A family acquaintance arranged for Hopkins to play piano for Richard Burton, the internationally famous Welsh actor. Burton listened, impressed not only by the talent, but by the intensity of the young man. Burton offered a simple suggestion that would alter Hopkins' life forever. You should go to drama school. Hopkins followed that advice with characteristic focus. He enrolled at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama and later gained admission to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. There, he trained rigorously. He was not charismatic in the traditional sense. He was reserved, intense, and inward, but he possessed something rare: absolute concentration. He absorbed language like a musician absorbs rhythm, memorizing scripts with astonishing speed. His early professional breakthrough came in theater. In the mid-1960s, Hopkins joined the Royal National Theatre, working under Laurence Olivier, one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. Olivier recognized Hopkins' unusual gifts immediately. When Olivier became ill during a performance of Dance of Death, Hopkins stepped in with minimal rehearsal and delivered a performance so precise and controlled that critics took notice. It should have been the beginning of instant fame. It wasn't. For years, Hopkins worked steadily, but without stardom. He appeared in television productions, period dramas, and supporting film roles. His talent was undeniable, yet he remained on the fringes of popular recognition. Behind the scenes, his personal life unraveled. Anxiety plagued him. Alcohol became a coping mechanism, then a dependency. Hopkins drank heavily throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s, often losing days to blackouts. In 1975, after waking from a drinking episode he could not remember, Hopkins reached a breaking point. He chose sobriety not gradually, but completely. He stopped drinking and never resumed. That decision marked the quiet turning point of his life. Sobriety gave him clarity, discipline, and a renewed sense of purpose. The breakthrough that would define his career came much later. In 1991, Hopkins was cast as Dr. Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. On paper, Lecter was a serial killer, violent, grotesque, theatrical. Hopkins approached the role with restraint. He spoke softly, he barely moved. He locked eyes with his scene partners and refused to blink. He modeled Lecter's calm on reptiles and predators, creatures that do not rush because they know time is on their side. Hopkins appeared on screen for roughly 16 minutes. Those minutes redefined cinematic villainy. His performance won him the Academy Award for Best Actor and cemented Lecter as one of the most chilling characters in film history. Yet Hopkins refused to be trapped by the role. He was wary of repetition, wary of fame's distortions. When he eventually returned to the character in later films, he reshaped Lecter again, older, quieter, more philosophical. Rather than peaking, Hopkins expanded. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he delivered a series of remarkable performances. He portrayed President Richard Nixon with psychological complexity. He played the emotionally repressed butler in The Remains of the Day, earning critical acclaim for his ability to convey heartbreak through restraint. He portrayed artists, kings, writers, and flawed men haunted by regret. Hopkins believed acting was not about showing emotion, but allowing it to surface naturally. He trusted silence. He trusted stillness. He often said that acting was simply listening, truly listening, and responding honestly. As younger actors rose and Hollywood's rhythms shifted, Hopkins did not fade, he adapted. He worked consistently, choosing roles that challenged him rather than flattered him. He composed music, painted, and continued to study human behavior with quiet fascination. Then came what many consider the pinnacle of his career. In 2020, Hopkins starred in The Father, portraying an aging man descending into dementia. The role required vulnerability without sentimentality. Hopkins did not ask for pity. He allowed confusion, fear, and dignity to coexist. The performance was devastating in its honesty. At 83 years old, Hopkins won his second Academy Award for Best Actor, becoming the oldest actor ever to do so. The moment felt less like a comeback and more like a culmination. Decades of discipline distilled into one performance. In later years, Hopkins spoke openly about being on the autism spectrum, a realization that came late in life but clarified much of his past. His discomfort with noise, his preference for solitude, his obsessive focus, what once felt like alienation became understanding. Despite knighthood in 1993 and international acclaim, Hopkins remained private. He avoided Hollywood's social scenes. He valued routine, solitude, and work. Fame never consumed him because he never chased it. Anthony Hopkins' life is not a story of sudden brilliance. It is a story of endurance, of patience, of learning how to transform what others see as weakness into strength. He reminds us that greatness does not always announce itself early. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it matures slowly, shaped by struggle, sharpened by silence. And in a world obsessed with speed and spectacle, Sir Anthony Hopkins stands as proof that depth lasts longer than noise, and that mastery, when it finally speaks, does not need to raise its voice.